Fasten your seatbelt. Put on your helmet. This is
Mojo Mondays.
Hello. It is Monday again, my Mojo humans. And I hope you had a good week. Did everybody have a good week? It is impossible to be in a bad mood on a Monday when you have that jazzy little tune, isn't it though? I hope everybody went and they identified their villains and created your own superhero story around it. I hope that was what happened to you this week. And I hope that the villains that you identified were not too hard. So today's topic is about the concept of tough love. And very often we hear about the concept of tough love in relationship to holding a boundary or saying the difficult thing to other people. And that is absolutely an element of tough love, obviously. As a parent, sometimes you have to make the kid or the whole family leave a restaurant because somebody's having a temper tantrum, enforcing a discipline. I have a friend who they have a child who is experiencing something very, very serious. And in order to prevent the situation from getting a whole lot worse, they're having to enforce tough love on their child. And it's painful and it's scary and it's hard. And I always say that tough love is just as hard on the person giving it as it is on the person who is receiving it. Okay. But there's also another element to the concept of self-love, and that is, tough love, and that is tough love with yourself. Okay. Sometimes your biggest act of self-care or self-love is tough love, giving yourself the hard truth. All right. It is so easy to slip into I deserve this. I deserve a break. I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to have a little snack. I'm going to have a little treat. It's just a glass of wine. I'm just taking some time off, right? I'm not saying that if you have legitimate mental health issues and need some time, don't take it. But it's very easy to slip into complacency with ourselves. Here's two examples in my life. One is from a long time ago, and one is just recently. The one from a long time ago had to do with what started out as tough love with one of my children, which was very upsetting to me, and I was devastated by the action that was required. And so I got depressed and started sitting on, not clinically depressed, by the way, just, depressed. And I was on my futon outside of my backyard, in my porch area, drinking myself into oblivion, eating too much food, crying all the time, to the point where the other children in my life came up to me, and they were so used to seeing me out there crying that it didn't even faze them. They're like, "Mommy, could we play video games?" I would be sitting there crying and they weren't even concerned about it. So that was a bit of a wake-up call. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm the only one who cares anymore about this problem. Everyone else has moved on. And now I'm overindulging in alcohol and in food and in self-pity. And it's time to change it. It's time to get up off the couch. And I did. And I got up off the couch and I started working out and I started watching what I ate and I lost the weight I'd gained and I moved forward in my life. Okay? And the second example is similar and yet a little bit different. So I am a vegan, and the joke is how do you know somebody's a vegan? They're going to work it into anything, conversation-wise, and it's true. So when my husband got sick, the place that he was living, the assisted living facility, had virtually no vegan food at all. If I was going to eat any food with him at his place of residence, it was going to be like lettuce. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to share with him. So they did, however, have vegetarian food. So while he was sick, while he was on chemo, all the way through up hospice and to the point at which he died, I was a vegetarian instead of a vegan, which meant that I would eat cheese and I would eat dairy products and things like that. I never ate meat. I've never voluntarily eaten meat since 2008, but I did go back to being a vegetarian for the simplicity purposes of really being able to go through this a very painful experience with my husband with solidarity. However, last 2 weeks ago, whatever, 3 weeks, no, about a month ago, I was getting ready to talk to all of my students about ethics, business ethics, personal ethics. I go through this whole thing about Kant versus John Stuart Mills and stuff like that. And the takeaway from the lecture is that you have to live your life according to your values, okay? So I was about ready to stand up in front of like 100 students and say that they need to live their life according to their values while I was still eating cheese. This summer I went to Europe, I stuffed my face full of brie cheese like a Pac-Man going through the little puzzle. It was ridiculous, okay? And I can't justify that. So I had to have some tough love with myself and say, Traci, if you're going to stand up in front of a group of people and tell them about ethics and behaving in alignment with their values and you're not doing it, you're being a hypocrite. So I became vegan again because it's been a year since the man has been dead. There's no reason for me to be eating food that I have a moral opposition to, other than it's easy and it's delicious and I like it, okay? So the thing is that self-love is not always bubble baths and Netflix, okay? Self-love is sometimes telling yourself the hard thing and the truth, the cold hard truth. Now here's a concept that I have had for as long as I've been a coach. A fellow coach of mine, Tom Shields, developed this idea and I loved it and he gave me permission to use it, so I have. And that is the concept of having an inner team. We all have a bunch of different people in our heads, not in a, I guess they don't call it multiple personality disorder anymore, but whatever they call that, whatever the proper terminology for that is these days. I almost had it, but either way, it's not relevant. We each have different parts of ourselves. And in healthy child development, where you're not abused, those parts integrate into a whole personality, but they're still distinct parts, okay? So we all have an inner child. We all have an inner athlete. That athlete may not get a lot of exercise, but we do. We have an inner creative artist. We have an inner lover. We have an inner parent. We have all of these roles inside of ourselves, different aspects of our personality, okay? And we have an inner critic and we have an inner drill sergeant, if you will, an inner personal trainer. So the key is to actively manage which part of your personality is active in any given moment. And the thing about it is that all of them sound like you because they all are you. So when you're driving down the street and you see fast food or you see Krispy Kreme or Starbucks or something, and you hear in your head, or if you're trying to not drink and you see your favorite, pub, and you're trying to not drink or you're trying to not eat or you're trying to not shop, and you hear, you know what, maybe we should go there. Maybe we should do this thing. Maybe we deserve a little treat, okay? Instead of just going and doing that, or instead of letting the inner critic berate you, which is, you're too fat. What are you trying to do? I thought you said you were good. Okay, that's not tough love, okay? Tough love is the part of you that says to yourself, no, we're not doing that right now because we want something bigger. We want something better for ourselves, okay? Self-compassion does not mean letting yourself off the hook for the things that you want, the goals that you want to achieve, okay? So you have to hold yourself to a higher standard than whatever you were doing that got you into the position that you're in right now, okay? If there's an area in your life that you don't like, okay, that's a reflection of a standard that you were holding yourself to that needs to be raised, all right? And so yeah, sometimes we need the cheerleader. Sometimes we need to comfort our inner child. And sometimes we do just need to sit on the couch and watch Netflix or play video games. I'm not saying don't ever do that. But I'm saying that if your life doesn't look the way that you want it to look, It's time to have some tough conversations with yourself about what needs to change. Okay, so imagine, I do this a lot. I really do. I have inner team meetings and I go into, like, I meditate or I close my eyes and I put on some music and I think to myself, okay, I imagine it as if it's like a board meeting, right? And my inner team has like an inner Martha Stewart and an inner Dave Ramsey and an inner Tony Robbins and all these people that I respect. And I talk to them because they're parts of me. And what happens is if we don't give each part of our inner team an opportunity to speak, they're going to start yelling. If you're not listening to your inner child and what they want, they're going to start screaming, and the next thing you know, you're going to overindulge them. Just like an actual screaming child, you have to either sit down and be like, what do you need right now? Or remove them from the environment before, and then you sit down and you go, what was that all about? Okay. So basically you can do that as a meditation. You can then, after you're done meditating or reflecting upon it, write it out. I have a list of my inner team members and what role they play in my life so that when I need a swift kick in the ass, I know exactly who to talk to. I need to go and have a meditative conversation with my interpersonal trainer who's like, no, we really haven't been working out the way that we want. It's not a surprise the scale's not moving. Or my inner financial advisor who's like, look, we've been spending way too much money on Amazon. Let's scale it back. These are your financial goals and it's not going to get there by buying crap on Amazon. Or, things like that. So you can write notes, you have conversations, but the point is that sometimes you've got to listen to that person in your brain who's the tough love one. And sometimes it starts out sounding like the critic. Okay, so if the critic is yelling at you, oh my God, you're so lazy, you're so financially irresponsible, you're screwing your life up, okay? If you hear that, then it's time to stop and ask your inner personal coach, your inner drill sergeant, what do I need to be doing differently, okay? The truth is that honesty with yourself is a tool for growth. Honesty with other people is also a tool for growth, but it's also, remember what I haven't published it yet, but my blog, when you read my blog this week, it talks about sometimes people use honesty as an excuse to be, cruel. It's the same thing. This is not about you being punitive to yourself and calling yourself names, okay? It is about you having a good, honest conversation with yourself about what you need to be doing differently in order to get the goals that you want. So, all right, so this week, this is what you're going to do. You're going to identify one area, right? One area that you need a little tough self-love today. And then you could tell me in the comments, you could DM me your personal mantra for getting through the hard things, right? Having those tough conversations with yourself, thinking about what it is that you need to stop doing or start doing so that you can live the life that you are really deserving and you really want. And you can raise those standards for every area of your life, because that's really what Mojo Mondays is all about. It's about how can you bring more mojo into your life? How do you raise your mojo? All right, everybody. See you next week.